Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Neuro-Inclusive Dog Pod, the podcast where we bridge the gap between neurodiversity and the dog world. Today, I've got another fantastic guest for you, and we're going to talk about something that is really, really important when it comes to dogs in general, but in all manner of different things. So without further ado, I'm going to let my guest introduce herself. So hello, Jo, welcome to the podcast. Can you tell our listeners who you are and what you do?
I can. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm Joe Nutkins, and I run dog training for Essex and Suffolk, which is on the border of Essex and Suffolk. I've been a dog trainer for pet dog training for just over 20 years, but I do have a specialist focus on fitness and conditioning with dogs of all ages, as well as working with senior dogs for brain work as well as physical work to keep them mobile for longer. And alongside all of those, I do take a very large interest professionally and personally in pain and pain management in dogs. So I'm now on my fourth senior dog, actually, because Ripley turned 7 yesterday, so she's now classed as a senior, technically speaking. But I have had 3 dogs into their teens, age-wise, not Pepper, Pepper's 2.5. And so have worked with my own dogs through aging, different pain management and things like that, as well as with my customers' dogs. So it's a real big passion for mine. I have 3 dogs myself currently. I've got Pepper Potts, who is 2.5, and is a little mixed breed crazy thing. I'm sure, yeah. I've got Ripley, who is 7, Norwich Terrier, and I've got Merlin, who's another Norwich Terrier, who's 13.5. They help me with my work alongside the ducks and the chickens and everything else that also do training.
Amazing. So you just said something there that was interesting for our listeners that may not be familiar with that. You said that senior dogs are actually classed as your 7-year-old. So for anybody who's listening, what age is it that dogs are actually classed as being senior?
So it does vary slightly depending on the size of the dog, just because of the rate that the body develops and grows, and then obviously ages as well. So generally speaking, 6 or 7 for your large breeds, so your Great Danes and your Bernese and Mountain Dogs and breeds like that. Then you've got around 8 to 10 years would be your large breeds. So I'm trying to think of a large breed, Weimaraner, or a larger size Labrador, maybe something like that. And then you've got your smaller breeds, which would be classed as senior, nearer sort of 10 to 12, personally for them, which will be your Cocker Spaniels and, sort of larger terriers. And then you've got your tiny breeds, like your Chihuahuas and your Papillons, that would be more kind of like 13, 14. However, in the eyes of insurance companies and with our vets, and generally speaking, once the dog reaches 7 years, they are classed as veteran and senior. So that's why your insurance will suddenly go up, and you'll get an extra excess. You'll get an extra 20% excess a lot of the time once they turn 7. Some are 8, but most are 7. It's just because by 7 they've had 7 years of wear and tear. A lot can happen in a dog's life. By the time they're 7, a lot has happened. And when you put that into perspective of dog years, rather than us thinking, 7, 7, I didn't need to have particular stuff. Then their body is obviously a lot older, their mind is a lot older, and their joints and their ligaments and tendons and everything else has gone through a huge amount, even just your average pet dog, but especially if they do extra sports, or if they have a genetic joint issue, or they've managed to do something to hurt themselves. Then once they reach 7, you're looking at a body it's aged even quicker, if you like. So Merlin is, say, 13.5. At 1 year old, I could feel that his knees were ever so slightly slipping, So got the vet to check him out and got him started on doing conditioning and things like this. But I knew that he would be more likely to have arthritis sooner, because he's got a joint issue, and that he's more likely to have more joint issues where they overcompensate, so where they adjust, so he takes the weight off the back end sometimes if it gets sore. So yes, at 13.5, he's got some mild arthritis. It's not stopping him doing things, he just adjusts, and he's on obviously lots of help for that. But he's going to age quicker than a 13-year-old dog that's never had a joint issue in their whole life. So although he's a small breed, he, to me, looks like a 13.5-year-old dog. Whereas when I had Cassie, when she was 13.5, she looked like she was like 8 or 9. She still moved like a much, much younger dog, but she never had any joint issues. So
Yeah.
that's different. So yeah, so it's a shame. But senior dogs, once they're 7, we class them as senior. It doesn't mean at 7 they have to stop doing everything. They don't have to suddenly stop sports and activities and walks. It's just assessing them and keeping an eye on them and being aware that now things that maybe they could complete quicker or they could shake off much quicker if they did like a lot of extra exercise, it now might take them a little bit longer. They might need something like a joint support just to help them for the future. So now's when we want to make sure we're looking at the future, not waiting for them to go, oh look, you suddenly turned old overnight, now I'll see what I can do to help you. Now's the time to help them. So if you've got a dog that's about to turn 7 or is 7 or 8, good time to start looking at how to support them better.
Amazing. So when it comes to pain in dogs and stuff, it's such a vast area. You could go down so many different angles, can't you? So what was it that actually got you initially interested in the topic of pain when it comes to dogs?
So there's actually two directions, very different. The first is Cassie that I mentioned. So Cassie actually lived to 16 and a half. She had epilepsy from the age of 2. Unmedicated, all diet controlled, but she lived to 16 and a half and led a good life. She did all sorts of sports and competitions and things. But I noticed when she was about 14 that she struggled a little bit. Outside, we had a raised garden with a ramp, and she struggled a little bit going up the ramp. And I could see that when she stood still, her back legs were starting to go under her a tiny bit. So I started researching and looking into this to find out. And I mean, when Cassie was 14, that was in 2014. So we're going back a little bit. So taking her to my vet, who was a really good vet, and I'm still with the practice now, and saying, you know, what can I do to help her legs? It's basically a case of, well, she's an older dog. She's 14. It's what happens. She doesn't appear to be in any pain. So just carry on as you are. But I don't accept that. I'm not someone that will just go, this is how it is, that's that. I will look into it. So I did. And around the same time, I was doing my Kennel Club accreditation. And part of that, it's very different to most accreditations. It's not, you don't do, they don't train you to do the accreditation. You have to look through hours and hours and hours and hours of questions and things like this to see where you have gaps in your own training. And it's up to you to go and do that training, and then you show your assessor. And a big gap in my training was the anatomy of a dog and their physiology, and just knowing what happens at what part of the body and when and why, etc. And there was a huge gap for me. So I started looking into what could I do. Now there's books out there and you could do a course, but actually the more I started looking and the more I was thinking about Cassie and her back legs and how she was getting older and changing, I wanted to try and do 2 things at once. Can I help Cassie? Can I learn to do something more? So I looked into pain. I looked into fitness and conditioning, and that's why I then did my retraining to become a professional canine fitness trainer. I looked into photobiomodulation, which is red light therapy, like Vitizo and things like that. Kinesiology, taping. I looked into so many different things. My section in my accreditation assessment for pain and the dog's body was bigger than anything else, even though I'd had sort of 10 years of pet dog training. It was the new stuff I was so passionate about. And I did help Cassie. Her legs straightened up. She could get back up the ramp, no problem. And she was fit and healthy and active and keeping up with the 2 younger dogs and have another couple of really great years. And I could do the same with Taylor. And doing the same with Taylor, who was Cassie's nephew, meant that he had a really strong body. So then when he turned just over 13, he actually had hemangiosarcoma, which is a bleeding cancer. And he needed to have tumours removed and he had to be rested. And a lot of the time when dogs are on crate rest, especially when it's for a few weeks, they lose muscle really, really quickly. And so then you've got a dog that, in Taylor's case, 13, cancer, and now has been on crate rest for a couple of weeks. Suddenly they look really old, and it's like, okay, that's it now. We can't do anything. But because I've done lots of conditioning with him first, because of the research and the training and all the stuff I've done, he was super strong, hardly lost any muscle mass, got it back very quick. So that actually a month after his major surgery, he actually he worked a music competition. We went because Merlin, his nephew, was entered, and we thought, right, well, we're there, we're camping, we'll put him in the ring and we'll just muddle about, and he can sniff if he wants, he can go and have a nap, I don't care, we'll just go and have fun. He went in and he worked his little socks off. He was too quick for the music because I picked a really slow song. And he got placed third out of 19 dogs. And I was going, well, I don't know what's going on here. But his body was strong. Because I'd put the work in first, it meant he recovered quicker. The vets couldn't believe it. The specialists couldn't believe how quick he was recovering. And it's because he was strong. So it's not just about him being all muscly and, you know, Popeye style, bodybuilder style, but actually because he had a strong body and it made everything else stronger, it meant that his immune system was better as well. It meant that I'd looked at so many different aspects of keeping his body and his mind and his overall health strong. He bounced back really, really quickly. So long-winded way to say it was because of Cassie, but also because I was doing my accreditation and I looked into it and saw that there was just this whole world to look into for dogs where we can help prevent pain, we can help reduce it, we can help them recover from it better. And it's there, it's available, and everyone can do it with their dogs, but we just don't know about it. And if I can do this with my dogs, I just want more people to be able to do it with theirs, and that's why it just become this big passion of mine.
Amazing. It's interesting, isn't it? And I think the thing is with pain, from my experience as well, it's one of the things that can get massively overlooked when it comes to behaviour and behaviour struggles. So in your experience, how often do you think pain is overlooked when it comes to possible reasons why a dog might be struggling behaviourally or in their training sessions?
And that is actually a really, really good question. And I would say for myself personally, I'd say about half of the dogs that I work with, whether it's behaviour or just pet dog training, we are looking at either an owner said, oh, I need some help with this, can we book in? Or they're with us doing, you know, general sits and downs and whatever the training is. And while we're there, they say, oh, look, this is something they do. How do I stop this? And instantly it's a behaviour thing for owners. If I can see that a dog is maybe suddenly not sitting and they're adjusting themselves, I can see they're uncomfortable straight away, and it's not a dog being naughty. Other times it might not be so obvious, and it depends what the behaviour is. But the hardest part I've found over the years is owners kind of, sometimes they have it in their mind what they think it is. They've seen a dog program, you know, good old dog programs. They've read a book, they've got Dr. Google, and they've said, the dog's doing this, my dog's dominant, my dog's aggressive, my dog's doing this and doing this. So you've already got to try and subtly say, well, actually, it's not that. I can see what you're thinking, but this is why I don't feel it's what you've come to the conclusion of. It's this, and this is actually happening. But also, I can see that your dog's got some discomfort. They've got a sore spot. They're walking like this. They're avoiding that particular position. And for a lot of people, not only have they already decided what's going on, but it's not nice being told that your dog might be in pain and you didn't know. As their caregiver, you didn't know that their dog was in pain. And if it's a behaviour that's been happening for a couple of years and they've seen a few trainers and they've not got anywhere, number one, they're going to feel really guilty, and no one wants to think that their dog's been in pain for a long time and they didn't know. But also you're going to get defensiveness. So no, I don't think they are. No, they wouldn't still chase their ball. They wouldn't do this. They're not in pain. They're not crying out. And you get lots of reasons why they're not. Even though I can then say, but this is what I can see. I can see this, this, and this. There'll be lots of different things. There'll be changes in the fur pattern. There'll be hot or cold spots. A dog might stop doing a certain movement, or they stop playing with a certain thing. You can get out. Or there'll be a change of some sort, but because they're not maybe holding up a paw or crying out or just laying down and saying, I can't do this, then it doesn't look like pain. And the reason why, or one of the reasons I feel that I can understand it quite well, is because I've got several chronic illnesses myself, and I'm in pain. Well, I'm in pain right now. I know that I can still do things when I'm in pain. And when it's chronic pain, when it's something you're with day in, day out, it's not that you get used to it, but you learn how to manage it. And I walk differently. We did a hill work to music. We had a guest trainer in recently, literally last weekend, and I filmed myself while she was teaching me something with one of my dogs. so that I'd remember, because I won't remember, because, you know, as you know yourself, memory, you know, in one ear and it just goes straight out the same ear, it doesn't even get to the other side. So I film it so I can watch myself, and when I look back, I hadn't realised how much I was walking weird because my hips were hurting, and no wonder my dogs were thinking, well, what kind of heel work's this? It's ridiculous. But everyone else there didn't know. No one else realised I was in immense pain. No one realised that I was adjusting my stance and my gait and the way I walked and the way I sit, make it less painful. So if I can do that, then our dogs are going to do it as well, because they don't know it's not right. I know that this pain isn't right, but from a dog's perspective, okay, well, this must just be what happens at the next stage of my life. I'll put the weight on a different part of the body. If I normally turn right to go and get my ball and that's painful, well, I'll just turn left, or I'll do a really big circle rather than a tight one, or I'll wait for it to stop rolling and then I'll pick it up. They'll adjust. And then if you have got, you know, oh, well, they're still playing with their toys. If they were in pain, they wouldn't still be chasing that. You've got adrenaline. Adrenaline accounts for so much. And then our dogs won't associate chasing the ball with the pain they'll have 2 hours later, because why would they? You know, we probably wouldn't. So it's a big one. I see it a lot. I never assume it's pain, but it's always in the back of my mind. I'm always watching what dogs are doing, because there can obviously be so many reasons why a dog's behaviour might change, or they're not getting a certain training exercise. But the actual Canine Arthritis Management, CAM, they've done studies, and the percentage of dogs, I think this is a general study as well, the percentage of dogs that have got pain that are showing behaviour issues or behaviour changes, it's is it 90 something? It's either 85 or 95%. It's a real high amount of dogs that are showing a change in behaviour or not doing the training that they're expected to be able to do is due to being in pain. And because pain could be sore spot, it can be huge pain, it, you know, that can be quite variable, but it's a lot. I see it in around half the dogs I see, but it's actually a huge amount.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think there's so many things there as well that we've touched on already, but also what you find as well is like the change of behavior isn't always necessarily it sometimes is like a physical change in behavior, or it might be just a lack of tolerance for certain things. So you might, especially if you live in a multi-dog household, you might get one dog that's, you know, feeling a bit of pain, is just a little bit more snappy with one of the other dogs, and it might be like these discrete things as well. So there's so many different things, and coming from an agility background as well, especially sports injuries and things. So you can have like, can't you? You know, obviously a lot more of this about this than me, but you can have like long-term pain, but you can also have like an injury, like a short-term pain as well, and something that can happen like there and then. And like you're saying, in agility, it can be so hard to spot, because it might be, and that's the thing about knowing your dog, isn't it? And knowing them inside out, as if to say, is this a pain issue? Is it a arousal issue? Is it an environmental issue? So something as simple as a wing wrap. It could be that the dog is, you know, 100 times, you know, 100% of the time or 99% of the time, they do a really tight wing wrap or something. And then at this one particular time, they've done a really wide one, which is out of character for that dog. Now, are they doing that wide wing wrap because it is an environmental issue? It's, you know, the line of the handler. There's so many different things. Or is it actually because the dog's in pain, isn't it? So when it comes to things outside of agility, because that can get quite complex and quite long-winded, can't it, when we're looking at sport-specific things. But can you share some examples of behaviours that you might typically see in like pet dogs, so to speak, that people might think is naughtiness or disobedience, or something that they might like think, oh, the dog's just being naughty?
So one that I do come across every now and then will be my dog is suddenly won't let me towel dry them, or won't let me groom them. So I'm trying to brush them, I'm trying to put them in the bath and give them a shower, I'm trying to towel dry them after a really wet walk, that kind of thing, where you're hands-on with your dog. And if a dog is in discomfort, there's a very high chance that they might growl, they might try and just wiggle away from you, so they're making it difficult. Or they might get to the point where they think, right, just stop doing this, because this isn't actually very nice anymore. And I don't know why you're not understanding the signs I'm giving you. So I'm going to do an air snap. And then if you still don't stop, then I will actually just try and bite you, because I don't know how to get out of this situation. And if it's either a dog that's always been fine with being tail dried or groomed or whatever it might be, and now suddenly they've changed, or it's gradually happened over a few weeks, that can, like a dog has become stubborn, they are being naughty. It could coincide with something else. So like you mentioned, multi-dog household, you might now have another dog in the house, and that dog is playing more and has managed to injure themselves. So you're thinking, well, you're just being stupid because we've got a new dog in the house. You jealous or something? And then again, it becomes a behaviour thing. But actually, it can be caused by the discomfort, the pain. We see it where dogs, we see it in training classes, especially with larger breeds when they're getting to kind of 8, 9, 10 months and they're potentially getting growing pains, and they suddenly won't sit. Right. They suddenly won't do a circle or go around something. They suddenly don't want to go up the back steps to come in the house. So technically, they're not coming in from the garden. They're not recalling. And actually, it's because they're suddenly having extra growth spurts, and maybe the front end's gone up half quicker than the back end, or vice versa. And actually, they're uncomfortable at this moment. I mean, that can happen at any size dog, but even more so with the larger breeds. And a dog that's been sitting on cue absolutely fine for the last few months suddenly is just standing there looking back at their owner saying, I don't want to sit. And it's not because they're stubborn. It's not necessarily just because they're a teenager. It can be literally, it's actually really uncomfortable. Do I need to sit at this moment? And I do, sitting in particular, just to go slightly on a tangent, I do try and encourage people to think about lots of different ways of interacting with their dogs and not being just about sit. It's always the first thing people want to do. I've got a rescue dog and I'm trying to sit. Shall we start with something easier? Because actually there's a lot going on for a sit. There's a lot of movement, a lot of mechanics in the dog's body. You're lifting your hand over their head to get them. That's a lot for a dog that doesn't do it yet. And everyone wants their dog to sit, and they want them to sit after a bit of hill work or after a recall, or they sit to get their lead on, to get a treat or to get their dinner. Ask them to do something different. Do a nose touch. Ask for a stand. Ask for a down. It doesn't have to be sit. But dogs can overdo it, especially when they're young, or especially if they've got a joint issue. So I mean, Merlin was a show dog when he was younger, so he didn't do a lot of sitting anyway. Plus, then with luxating patella in both knees, I didn't want him to do a lot of sits, particularly when out and the floor might not be overly grippy. And he got to 3.5, and I entered. I don't know why it was 3.5, but I entered him in an obedience competition. It was his first one. And 3 weeks before, I realised I hadn't formally taught him to sit. He could sit, but I just didn't use it. He had an emergency play bow for his emergency stop. He did down for everything. He did his good citizen with a stand stay. So he just didn't use sit. He could sit. I just didn't really use it that much. I thought, bloody hell, we need it for everything. Every heel and recall and everything needs a sit in a vegan. So I had to suddenly teach it to him, but it's overused so much. But then if a dog won't sit, it looks like they're being naughty, but it can be, it's uncomfortable. Greyhounds, the amount of people that get a rescue greyhound, and you see them, and I've seen trainers pushing on the dog's back. You will sit, you're being asked to sit. Why is it so important they sit? Could be really uncomfortable for that dog. It's uncomfortable for me to sit. I've got a standing desk because I don't like sitting very long. It's the same thing. And you mentioned acute pain. So if a dog gets an injury, acute pain can be more difficult for dogs than chronic pain, in the same it is for us, because when it's a sudden, this is a new thing, that's painful. And it's designed, it's there to help you heal. Basically, don't move, don't put weight on this, it hurts. Whereas when it becomes chronic pain and it's for several weeks and then maybe something they end up living with, or it takes a long time to heal, well, okay, this is what I'm living with. I'll need to adjust. I'll need to do things differently. It does make a difference what the type of pain is. And so if it's something that's just happened, dogs will lift a paw up. They will vocalise it. They will go, actually, something's happened here because it's a shock. It's new. So, you're quite right. When it's acute, when it's an injury or something they've just done, it shows up more, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing I just kind of linked there from what you were saying, when you've got like a chronic pain that the dog's been living with for a large amount of time or a significant amount of time, to me, what's just come up there is I think also sometimes if a dog practices doing a certain thing, so for example, if they're in pain and I don't know, they snap or they growl or whatever it is, they might do something, but that then becomes a learnt behavior, doesn't it? And it's that case of it then becoming, even when the pain possibly may have gone, you've still got this learnt behavior side of it, haven't you, to deal with as well. So there's lots of different little elements, isn't it, when it's not always as simple as just pain, but then pain is so important to recognize and understand because it's the implications of that and the learnt behavior that has worked for the dog, so it doesn't feel the pain anymore. So it's important, isn't it, when it comes to things like that?
Hugely. And that learnt behavior can even extend, that hurts when you're tail drying me. I'll do this, and that stops you. Excellent. Okay. So can I try it for this as well? I don't want you to pick up to put me in the car. I don't want you to take this bone off me. I don't want you to do this or this. Oh, it works for that as well, and actually then can become a wish I'd known that sooner.
Yeah, definitely.
Deciding, but you've actually, like you say, the learnt behaviours, they then learn this works. Maybe I'll try that for more things.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got all the experiencing. So it's just thinking about Quest when he had a really bad experience at the vets one time, and it was a young vet, you know, blah blah. We don't need to go to this. So basically, instead of putting the jab in the back of the neck, she kind of like freaked out and literally just stabbed me in his back end. And then he was like, well, that's so for ages. I then had a problem with touching his back end because he had this like light bulb memory of that hurts. No one is touching me there again. And I'm like, oh, thank you very much for that. So it's like.
It's already a sensitive area, and a lot of dogs aren't too sure what you're doing back there. But that's just made it worse.
I know, it's a nightmare. So when it comes to when you're training or observing a dog, what kind of things do you look for that might indicate like pain or have like the dog struggling physically?
So whether I'm first meeting a dog or it's a dog I see every week, I'm always just generally watching what they're doing anyway, because I want to check that they're doing the exercises properly. So I'm watching how they're standing, how they're moving from one position to another, how they're using any equipment that we might be, because it depends on what we're working on. If we're doing something like heel work, for example, then I might notice, okay, that dog looks like they're walking differently to normal. So maybe I'll ask the owner to do something different, or walk them on the other side, or do a recall, or just something completely different. Break them off for a second. Let's have a talk about the heel work, and then I can just sort of watch what the dog's doing. I'll be watching them going from one position to another. So if we're doing things like sits and downs and stands, I can see if it's a dog I know, I might notice that they're suddenly doing it differently. They're going backwards into position rather than forwards, or vice versa. I might notice if it's a new dog and the owner really wants them to, again, learn to sit, but I might notice that they're adjusting their hips as they go to sit, or they go to sit and then they stand slightly and then they sit, and it's not smooth. So that might make me think, okay, is it that they're slipping a bit? Do we need different equipment? Is it that the owner needs to do something different? So I might then say, can I have a quick look? Let's just have a look, see if we can progress this a bit more. And the dog's still definitely doing that. But so I'm not necessarily looking to look for pain. I'm just always looking to see what now I can't help it just because I do it so much. But initially, when I was first learning, it was kind of, while I'm looking, I might as well look at this and watch that. And it might be that. So I had someone last week with a miniature action rescue, ex-breeding dog. Actually quite nice structure overall, but hasn't come from a good breeder. It's not great background. Still quite young, still a couple of years old. But the dog does a lot of barking, action barking at other dogs. And so I wanted to see her with my dogs. So I brought them in one at a time to have a look at the reaction. Really didn't care. So I said, would you like me to see what she's like with them off lead? Because knowing that mine will just go, you're right, and just get on with their day. They're not going to come and push harder. And she ended up playing with my youngest dog. And they ran around together. And that was great because it gave me a real chance to watch her running and to see, she looks great. She's moving really nicely. She's moving freely. She's turning both ways. Fantastic, because they were worried that she might have something going on with her perhaps, and that's why she barked at dogs, things like that. So it was really nice that I was watching and explaining to the owners the body language that I could see with her interaction with my dog. But for me, I could also look and see, she's stretching each leg, extension, flexion, everything looks great. And so I'm happy that there's nothing going on pain-wise with her as well. And because she doesn't know me, and because she's had a bit of a past, I don't want to try and get my hands on her to feel her the way that I might do, to check structurally to see if there's anything else going on there, because she doesn't know me. I don't want to put her through extra stress. So being able to see her moving with her owner, moving with my dog, doing the different position changes and things like that means that I'm quite happy that she's structurally sound and that she's not got anything additional going on. She might have something stomach wise, she might have something that she's compensating for, but there's nothing jumping out. but I've not gone into it specifically looking for pain. It's just my mind. So I'm just watching movement, watching, do they refuse something? Is it a dog that's always done the same thing, you know, position wise, and now suddenly can't do it?
Yeah.
And is that, you know, and again, people will go, oh, they've been really naughty today, they've been really stubborn today. I've got a dog I work with weekly for fitness, and this is it's a lovely Patterdale Terrier. He's now about to turn 13. He had femoral surgery when he was very, very young, so he's not got one hip, and he does lose muscle mass very quickly. If he doesn't do his fitness for a couple of days, he loses it very quick. And so we have 3 different levels that we have to look at with him. If he's messing about, is it because he's being naughty? Is it because he's a terrier? Or is it because he's in pain? Or a bit of all 3. And I know him well enough to know which one it generally is. But it's a fine line. It really is a fine line, because you can still have a dog doing a behaviour that's not linked to the pain, but also we have pain as well.
Yeah, and I think as well, you mentioned something there about showing them when the Dachshund was off lead and was running about and that kind of thing. And I think one thing that I've found as well from that I do with people, like they'll associate pain, and the dog might be getting pain, and they'll take it to the vets. Now, from a behaviour point of view, your dog's not going to show their more relaxed, best behaviour and show that pain to the vets when especially if the vet is a scary place. They're going to, be highly aroused anyway. They're going to be very stressed, and they're going to be very tense, aren't they? So I think sometimes people will go, oh yeah, I've taken it to the vet and the vet said it was fine. And I'm like, well, okay, but and I think sometimes it's getting the knowledge out there that people need to get their dogs assessed in when they are comfortable, and in their, taking videos, even if it's they have to go to the vets, take videos and show that movement to the dog, especially if you've got videos as well. Like, so from a sports perspective, you've always got videos of your dogs doing runs and things like that. It's quite easy to say, well, this is what they normally do and this is what they're doing now. But yeah, that's kind of a problem that you can come against, isn't it? The vet says they're fine because they check them all over or whatever.
It makes it so much harder when you can see, you're just like, I don't know how you're missing it. And even sometimes owners will say, oh, I can see what you're looking at. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I wouldn't have known what it was, but now you've pointed it out, I can really see it. They go to the vet, and like you say, because the dog either isn't now off lead walking around, or it's a small breed on the table and it's sliding about, or it might just be, and this is not an intention to vet bash, because I highly respect the work that vets do, but they learn a little of a lot. They learn a little of everything, same as I did with my training, and that's why I found there was gaps in my training. So unless you go to a vet who happens to have done extra training in pain, identifying pain, a lot of the time it's what they've been taught, which is the dog lame? Is the dog limping? Is the dog crying? So if you go to your vets and say, oh, my trainer thinks that there might be some pain here in this general area, a lot of the time they might look, number one, the dog is either shut down or stressed, or just not doing what they need to do to be able to see where the pain is. But also, if that vet doesn't have an understanding of that particular type of pain, they're not going to find it. When I took Merlin for his luxating patella, when I needed referral for his hydro, my vet, because it was so mild, I literally picked it up as it was, becoming an issue. He felt both knees and said, there's nothing wrong with these knees at all. And I said, right, can I put your hand here? Let me move the leg. Can you feel it now? And he said, oh my goodness, it's very mild. But yes, there is movement, but it's very mild. And that would have been missed if I'd gone in and said, oh, when he itches his ear with his back leg, with his back foot, I'm hearing clicking, and it's not the ear clicking. They'd have felt it and said, oh, I can't feel anything wrong with it. And so then no pain. So then it makes it even harder, because the vet has said there's no pain. The owner didn't want it to be painful in the first place, so therefore it's not that, it must be behaviour. And now you're trying to still help this poor dog and help those owners that are at the end of their tether, knowing that if we can just do this pain management, if we can just adjust what we're doing here, I know this will help. You can't because they don't believe you. So you're now trying to work on a behaviour that could be sorted really, really quickly. It's really, really hard. And that's, again, it's education. It's letting people know that there are things that you can do to help your dog. And there are people that can assess dogs. You don't always need to go to a vet to get a pain assessment. What's something that I don't do as a fitness trainer, I don't diagnose. I can pinpoint and say, right, I think the shoulder isn't quite right, or it looks to me like, you know, there's something going on just with that ellipsoa under there. Could you go and get your vet to have a look at them? Or if you already see a physio for your dog or another dog, you know, whatever it might be, this is what I need to go and look at. I'm not going to diagnose it. But it needs to be a thorough vet check, because I mean, I've had a dog that's had a cruciate problem, Labrador, that was way overweight, a cruciate problem. There was some air biting going on when people were touching the dog on the area where that back leg, where the cruciate issue had been. When they stroked them in that area, the dog was air biting them, snapping. Right, go to the vet. I need to know if this dog needs some pain relief. So they took the dog to the vet. The vet said, it's not a vet that I know, said, yeah, the dog's fine. The dog was hugely overweight. So first of all, should have said, this dog needs to lose some weight, because that's not helping this cruciate really. And then the owners come back saying, oh, the vet said there's no pain there. I mean, this dog actually was limping, so I'm not sure why the vet didn't see the pain. But going back to what you were saying, completely went off topic again. Videos. I encourage people to do videos. If you're going to take your dog to the vet because you think something's not right, video them. If you see something, video that. Even if it doesn't matter what you're videoing. When I took a dog that was living with me, it was a chocolate Labrador that was meant to become an assistance dog. And just before she turned 2, I started seeing her sitting like that when she sat, her hips changed. And then when she started moving, I mean, I did so many things to protect the dog, you know, because I'm Labrador and she was a large breed, large version of a lab. When she ran, she'd move her right hip slightly like this as she ran. I thought, that's not right. That's not right. So I took her to the vet, and the vet sort of felt her and said, possibly, it's very mild. I think there could be some mild hip dysplasia happening there, but it's literally, there's not, you know, there's literally the start of it, and it's not confirmed. And I showed videos, and he went, actually, I can see what you're thinking of, and I can see what you're seeing as well. And the videos made a huge difference, because she couldn't run in the vet room. You know, my little dogs couldn't, let alone a large dog. So, and also taking videos and having a bank of videos that you look at monthly, every 6 months, you know, something like that. It will show you if there's a change. So if you think your dog maybe has had an injury that then they've gotten over, you can look at a video from before the injury, look at a video a few months later. Is your dog back to what they were doing, or is there still signs that actually there's still something going on there? It will tell you a lot. It will tell you a huge amount. Slow-mo videos are even better, and videoing with the camera down low, so it's not above your dog's head, but it's level with the torso. It will show you so much that you probably didn't realise was going on with your dog, good and bad, because it can show you a dog walking beautifully that you didn't realise they were walking beautifully, so it can be good and bad.
Amazing. So when it comes to your training sessions, you're training a dog and that you think that they might possibly be in pain, or it's a dog that you know suffers with pain. So how can you adapt? Because I know sometimes as well as trainers, sometimes they think, oh, dog's pain, I'm scared to death of touching it or training it. I don't want to make it worse. I don't know what I can do, what I can't do. Are there things you can do to adapt training sessions?
Absolutely. So just to say very quickly, one of the worst things you can do if you think your dog's in pain, whether it's a joint issue or an arthritis issue, an injury, is to stop them moving completely, which a lot of people will go, oh, that's it. Nothing at all. It depends on what the pain is. Obviously, if it's huge, then hopefully a dog wouldn't be in training in the first place, they'd be resting. But if it's something that's a chronic pain, something that the dog's had for a long time, if it is something linked with arthritis and joint pain, you can adapt by adjusting an exercise someone's doing. So if someone was working on a recall, puppy recall, the dog's had another dog bang into it during play and is now a little bit sore. So rather than asking that dog to come back to them and do a sit, why not just ask them to come back and do a stand and a nose touch? You know, they don't have to sit. It's just it's not needed for every single thing. It might be that so I've got dogs, most of my agility dogs in classes, and mine is very much pet agility. I don't tend to have many dogs coming in. Some compete, but most don't come in to compete. It's just to do a bit of fun. And most of my agility dogs are now over 10. I've got some that are 14, 15. And so they still do it, but I can adjust it by making the poles much lower. I make sure that they have their own set of weaves, so that they've got stick in the hot ground weaves that I can make slightly wider, so that they're not having to turn so sharply and putting strain on the shoulders and the hips. I've got a little Lancashire heeler who has got arthritis. She's not overly old, she's only 13, but she's had arthritis for a couple of years. And we saw that she'd get to the tunnel even when it was straight and pause, and of course even when it's completely straight for a small dog, there's still quite a lot of ridges in there. So she now does the Hooper's tunnel. So I put a 1 metre Hooper's tunnel out, completely straight. It's nearby where the main tunnel is, so that the group are using the main tunnel, and she just direct her to use the Hooper's tunnel instead. So the dog is still getting to do all the stuff she loves doing, and her mum is still getting that lovely one-to-one time with her doing the training. The risk's gone right down. The pain issues have gone right down, because the dog is now doing things in a different way. I had a golden retriever that was in the same class a few years back. And literally, when it got to her turn, rather than put the jumps down, I just moved the pole and put a Hooper's hoop in the way. The wings were still there. And she did Hoopers instead. And she absolutely loved it. She had a great time. But it kept moving. It kept her upbeat and doing stuff, and she still got to come out and see the dog friends each week, and the people that loves her, and she still got to do all of that. If it's I mean, I'm very much non-slip, everything's non-slip, but if I know that a dog has got some discomfort, then I'll make sure that they've got extra matting where they're working, so there is so little chance of them slipping or sliding, doing anything, that it's unbelievable. It might be changing a piece of equipment they're using. So I have a Bernese Mountain Dog in my classes, and if we're doing pause up, stay, for example, the other dogs might be using steps and barrels and things like this. She'll be using a place board that's 1 inch high, and Bernese, she's got long legs, she could reach much higher, but she's also an older Bernese, and she doesn't need to be putting lots of weight on that back end, so we put lower for her, and that's like suits her fine, she's fine with that. We're doing platform training. It might be that I give someone a ramp so their dog can walk up to the platform and back down, rather than have to jump on and jump off. So it depends on what we're doing, but it's just seeing how we can adjust, because a lot of time, again, and I'm there with Merlin at 13 and a half. I'm currently, my dogs sleep upstairs with me. I carry him up and down the stairs. I've just bought him I brought him a bag, because sometimes my pain is too much and I struggle, and it takes me a long time to get up there when my husband's on nights. So he's got a bag and he loves it. He gets in, I say, get in your bag, and I can carry that upstairs, hold on to the banister with the other hand. And actually, I think he prefers me doing that to carrying him. It's probably more comfortable, because I'm not holding him around his body. And he loves it. But I don't really want him to be getting older. I don't want him to have arthritis. I don't want him to look like an older dog. So it's hard to think about it. But if it means lowering a piece of equipment, if it means putting him in a bag rather than, why are you going up the stairs anymore? Get up the stairs. You can do it. You did it last week. Seeing it and thinking, right, okay, they're not doing what they normally do, or this is a brand new dog, and in theory this shouldn't be a difficult thing for them, to maneuver into or to do. So there's obviously a reason. Let's just try. And I do get met sometimes with, no, they can do it. They're perfectly fine to jump that high. They're perfectly fine to get on that or go over there or change direction or whatever it is. I just say, please humour me. Can we just try it? And then all of a sudden the dog just does it. And that's all they needed, was just that little adjustment. So there's a lot, and it doesn't even matter what type of training you do or what sport you're teaching. There are ways of just making it easier for them, making it easier for a dog. Sometimes if we've got a turn, again, with some of the older dogs in agility, I'll add a Hooper's barrel somewhere, so that turning back on themselves, for the majority of dogs doing a straight up and down, they do the turns, but the dogs that will find that hard get to do a nice big curve around a barrel and then carry on. So
that's it. And I think it's that thing of being flexible, isn't it, and making adaptations. And I think in dog training as well, what a lot of trainers suffer with is, and owners, is that you must do it this way. We must teach this like this, and this is the textbook way of how we teach this, and it needs to be this. And I think one of the things that I do, and that and I've done it ever since being a trainer, is I like to be a little bit different anyway, and I kind of like to think outside the box and be a bit flexible. And I think coming at it from a pain point of view, that's like a really good thing, because obviously, like you say, with your sessions, the dog doesn't need, just if it's doing pause up on a box, it can do pause up on something, like you say, 1 inch high. It doesn't have to be that, it doesn't have to do that, but it's also having that flexibility. And being able to get the humans on board, isn't it, as well, the owners, and saying, right, okay, well, let's just do it differently. And because everybody wants to be doing it a certain way, and they want to fit in, and there's all of these other little elements as well, isn't it? There's so much that goes into it that people don't often realize. But as well, I think what's super important, one of the things that I see a lot, which is new trainers setting up, and you get the puppy classes in the village halls and things like this, and you get the slippy floors and stuff, and I'm like, it's just not me. I think, to me, when people are sending out these dog trainers, they should use and say, listen, think about the floors, think about, if you're doing it in a village hall, can you get some yoga mats, can you get some, those little floor? Yes, it's going to be an extra expense. You can get things now, you can get big rollout things, can't you, and things that yes, it is an extra expense, but for dogs that may be in pain, or for puppies that it may cause issues if they're on slippery floors a lot, that's super important, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, it's hugely important, and I don't really know why education isn't changing.
Yeah.
Because more we know about it, and I've spoken to a few different trainers within their groups and their clubs and things like that, and it's like, oh, this is brilliant, and then it kind of tails off again a few weeks later and isn't mentioned again. And it's, with puppies, it's so important. And the amount of times that you see a puppy, and you see videos online of a puppy that's trying to sit and the back leg slides, and they try and sit again, the back leg slides, and it's all cute and lovely, and I'm watching it going, oh God, just stick a under it. And with things like Marketplace, you can get stuff very cheaply. A lot of the stuff that's at my premises, I mean, I won't say lucky, because I do pay for it, but I have my own premises, my own venue, so I can store lots of equipment there. So I have got carpets that can be unrolled, and I've got yoga mats and non-slip surfaces and bits and pieces. I've actually got some that are ex-stable mats that have been washed out, and they can be rolled up to put out the way, but they're thick, and they're nice to land on, and they're non-slip, and they work really nicely. And I think as trainers, if we can help people understand that actually this floor needs to be better and non-slip, owners will then go home and are more likely to do the same. Because if they're not going to think about it necessarily, if where they're going training, the dogs are sliding and they're not really noticing it. And a lot of the time you don't notice unless you watch your dog back in slow motion again. And I've been there. One of my dogs has slid and then wouldn't go in the hall. It took 3 months to get him back on board using paw wax. And constant. I mean, I do keep my dog's fur trimmed under the paws anyway, but just I got obsessive with it. Didn't grow more than a millimetre. And taken my own mats, because there were no mats. I'm going back a bit again, because this was Taylor. This would have been in 2004 to whatever. But it was just bizarre. And this, village halls are handy, but there's so much more availability for places to train now. It doesn't have to be a village hall, and it's actually quite hard. Not many village halls will let you train in them, because if they've got children groups in, often they won't let dogs train as well. So it's worth asking other dog trainers, well, can you rent their venue? Only if you align with them. Obviously, if they're a different type of trainer to you, people are going to think it's the same company. But other buildings that go up, and mine's a barn with a concrete floor that's got non-slip paint. It's the whole thing is purposely built for dogs. It also includes outside as well. So I'll bring training indoors if it's been raining and the grass is slippery outside. Whereas people will go, it's nice and sunny now. We can still train outside. We can still do stuff. Well, we can, but I don't want your dog to slip and end up pulling something. So actually, we're going to train indoors, or we'll cancel the session and we'll do it another time, because I'm not working on the slippery grass and things like that. And so it's not even just the flooring in a village hall, but I did make a noise when you said village hall, because it's just such hard work. Slippery floors and village halls. I know it's to make it easier for cleaning, but oh my goodness, it's just hard work.
And I think as well, coming at it from a different side of view, because when you're doing these kind of exercises and tweaking your exercise and using different bits of equipment, for me, that almost has like a double effect. Because for me, I'm thinking, as well as making adaptations and things, I'm thinking, well, it's building the dog's confidence. It's making it like, getting used to being on different surfaces and doing it differently. So for me, in my classes, I used to tend to always make things different, that novelty aspect, that confidence issue, so there's loads of different elements coming into it. But I think from an owner perspective as well, when the dog's not doing something, there can be so many other things going on, can't there? So like it could be an arousal issue, it could be a confidence issue, it could be they've got rubbish treats or a handler mechanics thing. So I think from an owner's, from any owners or anything listening, so how do you start to help them to understand? Because it's not all, sometimes it may be pain related, but sometimes it might just be that the mechanics are wrong or something. So how do you start to unpick that in a class?
So I'm always watching. I tend to a creepy stalker when I'm taking training. I'm always watching what people are doing. So as soon as someone says, "Oh, Joe, they won't do the stand. I'm trying to get a sit to a stand and they won't stand." First thing I'll do is say, "Right, can you please show me what you're doing so I can have a little look?" Because 9 times out of 10, their hand's in the wrong place, and it will be the hand's too high and the dog's looking up and sitting. So I'll check what they're doing. That's the first thing. The first thing isn't okay, maybe they've got back pain. The first thing will be, let's have a look, and this is going to be really bad. This is going to come out really bad. The assumption will be possibly the owner's not quite doing it right. Let's have a look. That's the easiest thing to sort. Let's see where the hand position is. Have they jumped immediately to not having a treat in their hand, and this dog's brand new to training? Are they going too quickly? Let's just have a little look. Are they doing it right, but the dog's actually looking at something else? And so let's have a look. Is it a focus thing, like you say? Is it that they don't want the treats? If they don't want the treats, check. Have you fed your dog 5 minutes before coming here? No. Excellent. Are they sensitive to anything? No. Right. Let me go and see if we can get something slightly different and see if we can get the attention that way. So we'll check. Is it an attention thing? Is it what the owners are doing? No, the owners are doing it fine. Okay, let's have a look. No, the dog isn't getting it. Okay, would you mind if I just have a little play with it? So then I'll take the treat and see if I can just try a different method. Maybe it's this method working. For example, teaching a dog to lay down. The amount of times that a dog won't lay down the traditional way, and we just need to tweak it. That's fine. So I can tweak it. Oh, okay, this seemed to work. Try that. Brilliant. Yeah. Then while I'm watching, if I see maybe the dog's trying to, I don't know, maybe they're asking them to give paw and the dog really isn't getting it. They gave paw last week, they won't do it this week. And while I'm watching the owner working, the owner's doing it perfectly and everything seems to be right, I see a twinge down the dog's back. Oh, okay. Yeah. For a second, I think there might be something maybe going on here. Oh, they did fall off that thing the other day, didn't they? Right, okay. So you get there. So I don't tend to, unless something shouts at me as being pain, I don't tend to dive in with it. I don't want it to be pain. I don't want a dog to be in pain. Yeah. If it's something that can be fixed just because the hand can be a tiny bit lower, or put your hand flat rather than curved, or whatever it might be, I'd rather it be that than a pain. Absolutely. So it's always then just checking all the individual things, and the same with so I have a lovely trainer called Kate who runs classes with me, and I have Charlotte who comes in occasionally to do gun dog stuff, and they do exactly the same thing. So when I've worked with them and trained them to do observations for dogs, it's always check in: is the method right for the dog? Is the owner doing the right thing? Is the dog actually interested? If all of these things don't work, let me know, and then they will. And it doesn't happen very often, but occasionally I'll message and say, right, I have videoed for you this dog. I've got a funny feeling there's something not quite right there. I don't know if you want to reach out to them or what. Sometimes, it depends on where it is, when it is. But if I can, I'll get back over. I'll be there to observe them in the class to make sure, and then I can talk to them. Or I might be able to check from a video. Because, if the dog's not doing something, the owner's getting frustrated, they're going to want to know why anyway. And if I can then say, been in contact with Kate, and actually I can see that there's something not quite right going on with their toe. Maybe just get it looked out. We can work with you on that then. But dive in on: is the dog paying attention? Is the owner doing it right? Does the method work for the dog? Because it doesn't always. There's never, as you said yourself, there's never one method. There's so many different ways of doing something, and I like that. I like trying to work out what will work for the dog for whatever the reason is. Whether it's just that the dog's switching off because they don't want to follow the treat too much. Okay, shall we try a toy? Shall we try them? You know, is it because they're outside, we're working outside and there's rabbit poo everywhere, which there is at the moment? Do we need to put a mat down then just to help them have a break from the rabbit poo for a moment? Do we just need to give them a break, full stop? Maybe you've done several and now suddenly they won't do it. Okay, just let them have a little walk around for a moment. You know, they've done quite a few. Let's stop. They're a young dog. They don't need to do 600 of them in one go.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it's that thing about being flexible as well. And there's been a few things there as well that you've said. Because obviously we'll have quite a few neurodivergent dog owners and obviously quite a few neurodivergent dog trainers as well. And there's a couple of things that, because also as well, even for somebody that isn't neurodivergent and maybe a little bit anxious or something, you might have something going on in class and it might be completely the humours issue, like the handler for whatever reason is feeling a certain way and then the dog's picked up on it and that kind of thing. And then the other thing that I thought of as well, when you mentioned talking to clients and having to probably break it to them that the dog's, you know, maybe in pain and they don't want to hear it. So one of the things I've massively struggled with and I've had to work on so much in throughout all of it is that confrontation. So as a neurodivergent person, it's like dealing with that confrontation, and it's like when they're right in front of you and you've got all of these other things, and you know, and like for me, it's a really hard thing to deal with. And it's like kind of, for me, I've got a massive sense of like justice sensitivity and what is right, black and white, right and wrong, that kind of thing. So it was like kind of, you know, I need to tell the owners this because it's, you know, it's right for the dog, it's what's going on. But I actually don't really like confrontation, and these can be a little bit tricky. And, you know, how do you kind of handle that kind of side of things?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So generally, before I mention pain, unless, like I say, unless it's really obvious, I will check again. Right, okay, let's try and work out what's going on. Why aren't they doing this? Aren't they doing this? Why are they doing this? And then I might say, you know, would you mind if I just had a little look at them? So if it's dogs biting me when their tail dried, would you mind if I just have a little feel of their back end just to see if there's a certain place that they don't like me being at? Is it because I'm behind them? Is it? And I'll just kind of look at it from a training perspective. While doing that, if I then can feel something's not right, if I see that there's a twinge, if I get to the same point every time the dog sort of turns and I can see the eyes have gone wide.
Yeah.
Bye. Sorry, husband going. Then I might then try a couple of extra things. Like, okay, so let's just look at this. Let's just see if I can move them this way. Let's just see if this happens.
Yeah.
I now also get a change here. Can I see that the dog's foot doesn't go down properly? Will they adjust if I do a different thing with them? So then I can say to the owner, right, okay, I just wanted to do a couple of checks because I had a little bit of an idea. I think and I generally don't use the word pain. I'll generally say something like discomfort or soreness, or they're a bit tender. Yeah. Because that doesn't sound quite so drastic as pain. And it might not be. It might not be that they've actually got, you know, the joint's about to fall apart. It literally could be they were playing and they've run into the door. I mean, the lab that lived with me, literally every single day of her life, at least once, she ran into something. I have no idea how. It probably didn't help her brain much. But then I'll say, right, so what I can see, what's happening when I'm doing this, if you come around to this side and I'll just show you, if you watch this part of the spine, while I'm just moving my hands down the side here, as if I was tail drying, can you see that twinge? And they'll go, oh, well, what does that mean? And I can say, okay, so often it means something going on to the fascia, and it literally could, and I'll try and give some examples so that they don't panic and think, oh, my dog's about to, you know, just fall apart. It could be a bruise. It could be that they've, you know, as they're back on something, they've outside, they've laid in a twig, or, you know, I'll try and give some examples of what it could be. But I'm going to recommend, if you can take them to the vet, show them what I've just done. If you want to video it, I'll do it again so your vet can see where to touch, and then just check in with them. Tell them it's a check for discomfort, or I might use the word pain at that point. Because if it is to do with this, it's something that we can work with, we can treat, and that will really help us speed up the behaviour work that we do. And that generally makes people think, oh, okay, so it's something you spotted. It's not obvious. We wouldn't have spotted it because you've had to do stuff to get there, but you want to help us with it. It's not a case of there's some pain, go and see your vet and that's it. We'll work with you. And in the meantime, to tail dry them, we'll do this instead. You know, we'll look at giving them a toy or a chew or a licky mat or something, and we'll maybe dab them or try doing something slightly different, and go that route. So I'll generally, before I mention it, I won't generally say, I'm saying generally a lot, I won't say, can I have a little look because I think they might be in pain? Because then if I feel them and they're not, I've now put that in the owner's head, and they're thinking, God, they accused us of having a dog in pain. But instead, I'll try and see if I can find some way of showing the owner, okay, this is happening. So there's little Jack Russell, really lovely little dog. I've known for years and years and years. He's in my advanced obedience, which is not, it's tricks and parkour and God knows what else. But he's now double figures. He's had a few bits and pieces health-wise, but nothing actually with his legs. But suddenly he's doing something weird with his leg, and he's doing like a little bit of toe tapping, and suddenly he's not doing very well when it comes to itching with it. And she's felt him over, and he goes to hydro, and they've felt him over. And she has been to the vet for something else, and they felt him over. None of them could find anything wrong with it. So she said, would you mind looking? No, no problem at all. Got on the floor with him. She was already, thank you, Ripley. She was already in the mindset there might be some pain, so that helped. In feeling, I could feel there's a tiny little, it's almost like a knot part way down the ellipsoa, and I think it's where because he does do things like agility, and he also does, if she goes to a show where they've got the lure thing, that, and he goes like the clappers, he goes mad for it. This little terrier. And she had been to a show where it had been there, and I think he's overstretched, and then it's then cooled down too quick, it snapped back, and it's just got this little knot there. So I physioed it, and I said, I think it's okay, but as you've got to go back to the vet for a checkup for something else next week, just get them to have I showed her where, she felt it. I'd never have found that. Yeah, I can feel that now. Oh, wow. No wonder no one else can find it. It was tiny. And it's gone now, and she did go back to her vet. The vet felt it when it was there and said, oh yeah, I can feel that. Okay, that answers a few questions. But if I hadn't been able to do that, if I hadn't have felt him all over and found something to say, I do think there's some discomfort here. We need to keep a little bit of an eye on it, make sure there's nothing bigger happening. If I couldn't have then said, feel here, this is where it is, she would have not been able to get her vet to check it. She wouldn't really have had anything to work with. She couldn't have checked it. Obviously, she was manically checking it every day just to check it wasn't turning into a lump. So that's generally how I try and go with it. If I do suspect pain, I try and find out if there is before I go into it heavily. Unless I need to do something big, I need to really palpate, or I need to move a leg in a certain way, then I might say. By then, chances are the dog's looking like there's something not right.
And so it's kind of like kind of getting some evidence to help your kind of case, to kind of back up what you're saying, to kind of limit that confrontation then, isn't it? Because I think it's that, isn't it? I was kind of like, I need to tell you this, but I'm actually, let's just get it. Then that might be a way for any dog trainers that are listening to like kind of handle things like, kind of, can you back it up? Can you show them evidence of this so it's not as confrontational? Because like you say, you might come across the people who are just in denial, or for whatever reason embarrassed if it's been going on for a long time and things. And I think from a neurodivergent client's perspective, I suppose it's difficult as well, isn't it? If you're going into a class and you might feel, going with a trainer that you maybe don't know very well, or whatever that might be, and you are expecting, you've psyched yourself up, you're expecting things to be a certain way, you're already feeling a certain way, and then if things change, like so if people, I have both autism and ADHD, so autism is very stereotypically like routine, and so you think in your brain this is how it's going to be and that's how it's going to be, then all of a sudden the trainer has changed things. So I think when it comes to one of the main things that I want to do when it comes to the neurodivergent stuff I do is kind of making trainers really aware about how sensitive we need to be when it comes to, maybe sensitive not the right word, but more caring, more aware, probably aware is probably a better word, of the human end of the lead as well, and tackling things from a neurodivergent perspective. Your clients may be neurodivergent and they may really struggle with change. They're coming in and expecting things a certain way, and then you're having to tweak things because there may be something wrong with the dog, or you're going to tell them something that they might hyper focus on, and then think like before they've even got home, they've literally think their dog's going to die or something, really catastrophized it or whatever. So do you have many dealings with that, and how do you kind of navigate that kind of side of things?
I kind of approach it how I'd want to be approached if it was the same way, the opposite way around. Before I do change equipment, whether it's because I think it would be better for that dog, or whether it's because I feel they're in discomfort, I will always ask, and I'll say, because I work with everyone, even in a class, I always go around to everyone individually, work with everyone individually, and I'll always say at the start of the course and intermittently, don't forget, everyone's working at a different rate, different dogs have done different things, different exercises will suit one better than another, etc., etc. But I'll always say, you know, would you like to try maybe a different bit of equipment? Should we try something a little bit lower and just see if that helps them? Sometimes it can be a confidence thing, they just feel it's too high, we can do a lower one and then go back to the taller one. You know, it might just be that they don't like the surface of this one or the texture, so I'll try and explain the reasons why change might help the dog for the better. If I do suspect discomfort or pain, by the time I've got to the point of saying, right, okay, we've found this, I'll explain why I thought there was something. So it was just when the dog was sitting, I could just, from my angle, I could see that they were sitting a little bit differently on one hip. That's why I asked if I could have a little look. You won't see it from where you are because I'm standing here without the dog. I can see your dog's back really clearly, so I could watch what they're doing. Here you go, I've videoed it. This is what I can see. And try and explain it as much as possible, and there's no surprises. I won't just go, oh, the dog's not doing that. Hang on, I brought this over. We're going to use this instead, because there's like, well, I don't understand. Why am I doing it differently to everyone else? What's going on? But at the same time, I purposely have different types of equipment anyway. So when I'm giving things out, I'll automatically say, I'm just looking around at my dog room, which is full of fitness stuff at the minute. But as I'm giving things out, because most of my stuff is different in size and height and shape, every dog will have something different anyway. So I think people generally get used to having things different. It's not such a big shock that suddenly everyone else has got a green place board the same size, but I'm working over here with a black one that's half the size and that hasn't got carpet and theirs has, and well, why is mine so different?
And I think
it's the same as the others.
And I think there's two sides to that as well, isn't there? Like you say, from your point of view, you've got when somebody with neurodivergent come into that environment, there is a variety of different things anyway, so that becomes a normal. And I think a lot of trainers don't always appreciate the fact that a lot of neurodivergent clients can feel quite alienated quite quickly. And I think while everyone's trying to be inclusive, sometimes you can end up excluding people by giving them that, by trying too hard or alienating them by saying, you need this particular one or whatever. And I think it's like from your setup, it sounds like it's very much the normal to have lots of different things anyway, so people aren't going to feel like you're a different size dog or different bits of it. It's normal for people to have different things. And one of the things I used to do is if for example, if somebody was struggling, so maybe it would be a sensory issue, or the owner, the dog needed really high value slimy pate or something, and the owner didn't want to touch it. So I would get we'd have the ball chuckers, not to chuck balls, but I'd say let's all play this game, and we're going to put a treat here, and we'd give everybody one, just so it's not like, no, you can just have one because you're the odd one out kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's kind of like making it inclusive and giving trainers that you have to be flexible, you have to think outside the box. And just because you've got a class plan that tells you we're going to train a sit or this or that, you do need to have that variety of awareness of not only for the dog but for the humans as well, don't you? I think it's about educating the trainers just as much as it is educating the owners to help their dogs. So if a trainer is listening to this, wondering how they can be more aware in pain, what should they kind of be looking for in their classes? I mean, to start off with, they should kind of, from what I've been gathering and what I've been doing and what you've been saying, they should make sure that their setup is to limit those things happening in the first place, like putting mats down, those kind of things. But where would you recommend they start if they're interested in thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to kind of look at this from a different lens kind of thing? What would be a good place to start?
I'd actually go and look at, if people haven't already, Canine Arthritis Management. Hannah is a vet and she's amazing. And although not all pain will be because of arthritis, she's just got so many resources, so many free resources as well. I'm a member because I really believe in what they're doing, but they've got their social media will have things on there for you to look at, and they do myth busting on Mondays. So every Monday they'll post a question with some answers, and then they'll explain what the answer is and why it's that. always talking about pain. They just did this month. I'm forgetting. I'll be in June, not yet. May, they did a pain symposium that was online. It was 4 days. My brain was blown on all types of different pain. Again, not just arthritis, but just looking at all different types of things. Dental pain, one of them did a talk on. Dental pain in cats, but I still found it fascinating. I don't have cats, but I still found it really fascinating to listen to. So there's somewhere I'd definitely start with. And then there's loads of people out there, but Yaz, can't think of a surname. She's Yorkshire Poochie. I'll find the name and you can put it in.
We can put the links in the underneath anyway.
But she's a pain management specialist for all dogs, all ages, all types of pain. She uses, again, things like the photobiomodulation. She's a physio practitioner and demonstrator, and she gives lectures about it. And again, she has lots of free resources and again, her social medias. I follow them on all the different platforms, even though it's the same stuff. I just really enjoy learning from it and going, oh, yes, someone that speaks honest, normal stuff that makes sense. So if I remember a name, I'll give it to you and you can follow her as well. And it's then really, I mean, if you have a gut feeling, if you see a dog and just think something's not quite right here, it probably isn't. Gut feeling it really does go for a lot. And if need be, if you're someone that does take photos or videos of your dogs in classes, I tend to, because people don't get to see what their dogs are doing a lot of the time. I get a real good view, so I take a lot of videos and photos and then send it on to them, which is why my phone's never got any storage available for my own dogs. So I'll do that, and in the process of doing that might give me a chance to then sort of go home and go, I'm not sure about this. And maybe I'll ask someone else. It might be someone that is a pain management person. It might just be someone that's another trainer, and I'll one of my class assistants, and say, would you mind just looking at this video and tell me what you can see? Is there anything not quite right here? Because you could ask someone else that maybe doesn't really know a lot about pain for dogs, but actually they've had a dog that's had a particular type of issue. So they might then go, oh, that looks like when my dog had that thing going on. That's what I thought I saw as well. And then I can then think, right, okay, maybe I'll then do something about it. Or I might ask someone that is in pain specialist. You've got dynamic dog practitioners, you've got people that do physio and chiropractor and acupuncture and massage. There's so many people out there that will help, that will give you somewhere to go to or somewhere to ask. But if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And if you can't quite put your finger on it, well, we've tried everything. We've tried all the methods, and we've tried 600 different treats, and we've done this and this. It might be there's some discomfort there that's causing the issue. So it's somewhere to fall back to. But setup wise, you can ask people to bring mats. When you're picking out your what to bring your big bag of treats plus an extra bag, because you never bring enough, and your toy and your dog's water or whatever you're bringing. Most people bring settle mats a lot of the time to classes now anyway. To bring something, you can get a yoga mat off of Marketplace for a £5 or less. In fact, a lot of supermarkets have had fitness stuff in at the minute. When online shopping places, I won't mention any, when they're doing sales at different times of the year, you can get stuff that doesn't have to be expensive. In fact, you can get extra large yoga mats as well. In fact, I've got so many yoga mats, it is quite ridiculous. I have nothing flooring, but I still have yoga mats. Just because I just have mats everywhere. I put platforms have got either. Sometimes artificial grass can be good, but sometimes that can be slippery. So I've also got yoga mats. I've got carpet squares that have been cut out to put on different surfaces. If someone's using an aerobic step, I'll wrap a yoga mat around it so that it's not just plastic. I'll also, and I'm not a groomer, but I will also, if I see someone whose dog is slipping, sliding everywhere, maybe they've mentioned that maybe they go to Ringcraft and the floor there, when they're not working on the actual matting, the actual floor of the hall is slippery, and they've got a breed that's got really long fur, then I might say, oh, could I just have a little look at their feet? Okay, tell you what we could do that will really help your dog. Maybe they've not got the confidence to walk in the hall, perhaps. Let's have a look. Would you mind if I help you trim the pads? Or if they're going for a groom, maybe ask the groomer to do them a bit shorter. It'll make a world of difference for your dog's confidence. They'll walk better, and that will really help them in the show ring. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, we'll do that. And, you know, normally got some grooming scissors knocking around somewhere. So being aware of things that cause dogs to slip and either get injured or makes pain worse. You know, little things. Flooring is the biggest one, definitely. Flooring and surfaces of things. Like you mentioned, different surfaces. All of the equipment I use for people and dogs. Our puppy courses, we do a confidence course partway through. So there'll be different things set up, and there might be some platforms over here. There'll be a trampoline with a ramp and a mat in the middle of the trampoline so it doesn't slip. There might be a very low ball pool over here, sand pit, different textures and different heights and things like that. So the puppies are getting used to being in different places and on different surfaces.
Yeah.
That's the same with if your equipment is all exactly the same, dogs aren't going to get used to generalizing. So have different things. When I'm if I'm doing platform training, some dogs will be on a trampoline, some might be on a Kato board, another one might be on a table that's got non-slip paint on it, something like that. They'll all be on something different, a pallet that's got a coating on top, and then a carpet on top of that. You know, they're all working on different textures and things, and that's not only good for the dog's generalizing and confidence building, but then it's not leaving anyone out. Everyone's got something different anyway. And the other thing with having different textures and different items, so I've got all of my yoga mats different colours. It means that if anyone really, and I don't mean this in a picky way because it doesn't match their outfit, I mean neurodivergent way, that sometimes we just don't get on with something. It just isn't right. The texture of that mat feels weird on my hands. I've got different texture yoga mats. I've got different colour yoga mats. When we do, for example, putting a head in a bucket for a trick, hide your face, I've got different sizes and heights of bucket, and I've got different material buckets, because it doesn't, you know, sometimes it's enough. And if that really is not quite right for an owner, the dog's going to go, well, I don't know what we're doing. No one's going anywhere. So it's just, like you say, as much for the owners as it is for the dogs, but definitely canine arthritis management, definitely go and check them out.
And I think as well, it's being flexible, isn't it? It's having that open mind, being flexible about absolutely everything. So it's from the dog's perspective, looking at it from like a behavior context, looking at it with a possible pain lens, but also looking at it from the owner's perspective. Is it something the owner's doing? Is it a neurodivergent kind of I won't say issue, but I can't think on the spot the right terminology to use. Is it something that the owner is struggling with, like you say, different textures or things like that? So just being really, really flexible and thinking outside of that standard dog training box, isn't it? And I think we've covered so much on today's podcast. I always feel like we need a series of these to get through absolutely everything. But so the listeners can get to know you a little bit more, I am going to ask you 5 quick fire questions to get to know you a little bit more. Ready?
Yep.
Right. First one's really difficult.
Going into energy saving.
It's right. The first one's really difficult. Tea or coffee?
Neither.
What do you drink? Hot chocolate. There you go. Amazing. If you had to choose one, what's your favourite dog breed?
I can't choose one. I'm going to have to say Norwich Terriers because I've had 4, so yeah.
That one. What's your go-to dog product that you recommend or use all the time?
There's a lot, but the one that's in front of me are my Tug Enough toys.
Yeah.
Because I've got something for every dog, whether they play or not.
Yeah, amazing. Lead walk or off-lead adventure?
Ooh, off-lead adventure.
Yeah.
So I can stay away from everyone.
I think that's been everybody's answer so far. And then the last one, what is your favourite way to recharge after a busy day?
It is literally to hang out with my dogs. Either I'll go to a dog field, so I haven't got to worry about anything else going on around me, and my dogs can just do that. They can go at their own pace, etc. Or it will be hanging out with my chickens or my ducks, just sorting out their enclosures, and I'll stop every now and then, watch what they're doing. And actually, a lot of the best ideas I have for work, for dog training, come to me either when I'm grooming the dogs, or I'm clearing up duck poo, or I'm feeding the chickens, because I'm just not thinking of anything else. I'm just focused on that, and I find that so much more relaxing than, I don't know, having my hair done. Or
yeah, that's it.
going out with all that background noise and everything else. I'd just much rather be with the animals.
And the last one, which is the most important one, where can people get in touch with you and find out if they want to work out, if they want to know what you do and like work with you further?
So I'm Joe Nutkins, and it's dog training for Essex and Suffolk. Our website is literally that, dogtraining-essex-suffolk.co.uk. Social media, Facebook is Dog Training for Essex and Suffolk, and we've got a page and a group. Instagram is a confusing one. It's my first two dogs, so it's Cass and Tay, as in Cassie and Taylor. So Cass, CASSNTAY. And we have ventured into TikTok, and I can't actually remember. I think it's something like Joe Nutkins Dog Trainer. It's meant to be exactly what it says on the tin. And on there, amongst showing some of the things that dogs do in classes, so hoopers and tricks and agility, etc. I will every now and then put, so recently I did a video of Merlin doing some of the exercises I do for him to help him with his arthritis, to help keep him mobile, etc., which people found quite interesting. So yes, there's bits and pieces on there as well. So I'm in most places.
Amazing. And what we can do is we can put all of the links underneath the podcast so people can just easily click and get in touch with you. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's been absolutely fantastic listening to you, and I think our listeners will get so much information from the things that you've shared. So if you are new to the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss a future episode. And it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Joe.
Thank you so much.
All right, see ya.